right, so we're going to start. So this is the last lesson in climate change and the course. And this is about individual climate action. So we've talked about what the world has done. We talked about what Canada has done. You are not really in control of those things, okay? We elect officials that will do that for us. Whether what they do will satisfy us is another question. But this class is about what you can do on a personal level and how much of an effect the collective population can have on climate change. Okay, so this is extremely relevant for everybody's daily lives. Okay, so here is the wall of shame, another version of that. Yesterday we looked at greenhouse gas emissions, top 10 in the world in terms of total emissions. This is greenhouse gas per person, per capita. Okay, so on average, each person in the country, their contributions to the greenhouse effect. And if you see this, behold, Canada is 12th. Okay, we are top 10 in absolute emissions, and we are top 12 in per person emissions. So still, this does not look good for Canada. A lot of the countries above Canada are tiny nations. They happen to be well off for some reason because they have access to resources such as oil. So of course they're going to have a lot of greenhouse gas emission. Canada does have oil, just that we have a large land and little population. We too belong to that category. So we do emit a lot of carbon dioxide per person. Okay, we are higher than the United States. All right, so what can we do about that? If you check out that pie chart, you can see that half of the greenhouse gas emissions comes from transportation, okay, driving, taking the bus, just getting around in general. And then a bulk comes from heating and cooling homes in summer and wintertime. And the other, the rest of it, you have water, lighting, other appliances. So basically, all of these things we do on a daily basis, okay? Now, this is good news because this means that you can make a genuine difference if you change your lifestyle, if you choose a more energy efficient or less energy intensive lifestyle, you can make a positive difference. And if the collective population does that, then we will drastically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So this brings us to this topic, ecological footprint. This basically is a measurement of how much resource you are consuming. So the actual definition is the area of land and water that is required to sustain your current lifestyle. Okay, so we all have a lifestyle. I don't know what you do, but no, I am quite wasteful compared to the rest of the world. I use electricity every day. I use clean water every day. I shower every day. I heat my home every day, and I eat a lot of meat. So all of these things require land for that to happen. Okay, if I want to heat my home, then I need land that produces oil to make that oil to generate that electricity. If I want to eat meat, I need land to raise those animals. Okay, I want clean water. Well, I need land and water for that too. So this is a measurement of how much land is required to just support me as a person. The larger your footprint, the more wasteful you are. And there is a test online. I'm not going to make you do it because I made the grade 9s do it. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you have done it already. It tells you what your ecological footprint is. So the bigger it is, the worse it is for the environment. And here is the ecological footprint map of the world. The darker you are, the more wasteful your country is. And lo and behold, Canada is at the top, not very top, but we are pretty much at the top, 7 to 9 category, and we are extremely wasteful as a country. And notice that Africa is mostly orange, and Southern Asia is mostly orange. So what can we do about that? Okay, what activities will increase our carbon and ecological footprint, and what activity will reduce our ecological footprint? This is not a whole list. This is just some examples, just a small sample. The first thing that will increase our footprint is traveling. Okay, if you drive anywhere, you are emitting carbon dioxide into the air, you are using natural resources. So if you drive, you will have a high footprint. And also it depends on the make of the car. If you have an SUV, then that is highly that is highly wasteful in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. If you have a more and less energy intensive car, like a hybrid car or an electric car, or just a smaller car in general, then you emit less carbon dioxide as you drive. So keep that in mind when you buy a vehicle in the future. A lot of people like SUVs, they like minivans because they find it more comfortable, they like the size. I am personally not a fan. One of the reason is that it consumes a lot of gas. It is extremely expensive to fill up on gas. So personally, I don't get one. But if that fits your fancy, just know that you are contributing highly to the greenhouse effect if you drive an SUV as opposed to a smaller car. And air travel, that's pretty much been shut down in recent times. But still, there's still air travel. And when there wasn't a pandemic, there was a lot of air travel. And this is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas in the world. People simply flying around, and you burn a lot of fossil fuels doing that. So to limit air travel is also doing a favor to the environment. The second big thing that a lot of people do is eating meat. I know there are some vegetarians in the world, some vegans, but most people aren't. Well, at least in North America, in the developed world, most people aren't vegetarians or vegans. But a lot of people in the rest of the world that are less fortunate, they are vegetarian not by choice. It's because A, meat is just not available, and B, meat is too expensive. Okay, so we are basically taking it for granted here in Canada. Meat is readily available. It's not that expensive. So many people, including myself, eat it very often. And especially beef. Beef is one of the largest contributors to the greenhouse effect, because to raise cattle, you will release a lot of methane into the air, which is a very potent greenhouse gas. Just by cutting back on the amount of beef you eat, you will make a difference. Okay. The third one is electricity usage. If you just turn off your lights, that goes a long way. If you have to pay electricity bills, you probably will turn off that light because you don't want to lose money. But if that's not a concern, still, I would turn off that light even if I don't pay that bill. All right, I used to live in places where the electric bill is covered, but I still make a note of turning off lights because to save energy and protect the environment. The last one is to buy imported goods. If you want that exotic fruit from like a hotter place like Brazil or Vietnam, then you have to know that that fruit hopped on a plane and flew to Canada. Canada is unable to grow pineapples and durian and fancy fruits like that. So we need to import those. Okay, if you cut down on your consumption of imported food and eat more local food, you are doing the environment a favor. You are reducing your carbon footprint. So these are just examples of activities that increases footprint. I'm pretty sure most people do all of these things. Okay. So you could make a positive difference. Now, these are activities that reduce your footprint. Recycling. If you recycle, we don't have to extract more resources to make new things. Carpooling and public transit. If you must get somewhere, take the public transit or hop on a car with somebody else. That's one less car on the road. Okay, and using renewable energy, well, that speaks for itself. Buying local, I explained earlier. So these are some of the things that you should look into doing more of. if you want to be environmentally conscious. So the sustainable energy pyramid is a guideline for us to reduce our energy consumption. So the pyramid goes like this. At the base of the pyramid, the biggest chunk, okay, the biggest contributor to a better world and sustainable world would be energy conservation. Simply save more energy. Don't use it if you don't need it. The next level up is energy efficiency. So if you're using that energy, make sure that it is efficient. You're not wasting energy as you use it. And the last one, the tip of the pyramid, is if you want to use energy, try to use renewable energy. Okay, so we're going to look at each of these individually. So firstly, renewable energy sources we talked about yesterday. I gave you 6 examples. You should know which of them are renewable and which are not. So these non-renewable energies, such as fossil fuels and nuclear energy, yes, they are very good in terms of supplying our energy demand. But know that these are non-renewable. That means once you use it, you don't get it back. It's gone. You will consume it pretty much forever. It takes millions of years for fossil fuels to be formed, okay? And if you use them up, that's it. So these are reliable, though. That's why we keep using them. They've never failed us. They're cheap. Coal is very cheap, and it is very good in providing energy. The only problem is pollution and climate change. So if you want to switch to a renewable like solar, that costs a lot of money. To build a solar panel costs money, and the building process releases a lot of greenhouse gas. It is very damaging to the environment to build solar panels because you have to extract rare minerals for that. But once it is built, it can generate energy for days on end, and it is renewable. The sun is not going to disappear anytime soon. However, they're woefully inefficient. Okay, you're not going to get a lot done with solar energy alone. And same problems with wind. To build a wind turbine costs a lot of money and resources. And once it is built, it's not even that good in terms of generating electricity. So if you want to switch to renewables, that's quite expensive. You got to make a huge investment. You got to give up something that is proven to be good for something that is not yet proven. So it is necessary, though, that we use both energy and smoothly transition into more renewables. Don't quit cold turkey. That's not going to work. I believe one country in the world right now, Sweden, is completely fossil fuel free. The entire country uses non-fossil fuel sources, but Sweden is a small country with a small population. You can't expect countries like the United States and China or India to do something like that anytime soon. So this change is slow and gradual, but we need to make that change. We can't procrastinate. So the next level in the energy pyramid would be energy efficiency. Okay, it is not enough to use energy, but you have to use it efficiently. Okay, you can waste a lot of energy without knowing. So how does that work? Well, if you look at that picture to the right, if you want to light up a light bulb, you flick the switch, okay? Well, where does that electricity come from? Well, it comes from the power lines. Well, where did that come from? It comes from a power plant. So energy, such as coal, is being fed into a power plant, burned for energy to generate electricity, which is then passed through the power lines into the faucets, the outlets in your home, into the light bulb, which generates light. Cool. That seems very convenient. But everywhere along the line, energy is lost. Okay, that's how physics works. If you want to convert energy from one form to another, you will always lose some. Okay, it's like going to another country. You want to convert to the currency. If you go to the United States, you convert Canadian dollars to US dollar at the airport, they will charge you a little fee for that to happen. So you don't get the entire conversion. You lose some because you got to pay the person. Kind of like that in real life, except you lose a lot, not a little. If you feed 100 units of energy of coal to produce light, you only produce 2 units of energy of light. The rest of that 98% is gone. either as heat or as sound or as other wasteful, useless energy to us. So that is highly inefficient. So light bulb is just one example. Here are some light bulbs, different types of light bulbs. They have different efficiencies. If you still have an incandescent light bulb, we learned in physics, incandescence is just heat something up and it will glow. That is 5% efficient. If you use 100 joules of energy for the light bulb, only 5 joules will be coming out as light. So 5% is terrible. I highly recommend, if you still have incandescent at home, get other ones. Okay, I don't recommend going out literally now during the lockdown period to get a new light bulb. That is not an essential need. But when you have an appropriate opportunity, I highly recommend you go to Home Depot or Rona or Canadian Tire, get some fluorescent light bulbs. They are 4 times more efficient. They're 20% efficient. Yeah, 20% still sucks, but it is leaps and bounds better than 5%. So I personally switched all of my light bulbs at home to fluorescent light bulbs. And the Canadian government actually is slowly phasing out incandescent light bulbs. It's really rare to find incandescent light bulbs in shops anymore. All right, so do you agree with the government's decision? Yes or no? Some people might argue that, well, that restricts my freedom. I want to buy incandescent light bulbs for some reason. Why should the government tell me what to do? I'm hearing notification. Guys, if you drop out of the lesson, it's really annoying for me to get you back because I have to end the PowerPoint, so try not to disconnect.
Yeah, sorry, I accidentally closed my laptop, that's why.
Okay. So do you agree with the government's decision to slowly ban incandescent light bulbs? Yes or no? Anyone?
Yes.
Yes?
Because you're becoming more efficient with getting rid of them, and it doesn't make sense why anyone would prefer those over like LEDs or fluorescents.
Okay, yeah, so that's really not a debate, is it? Very few people would disagree with that. I can't even think of a good reason to disagree with that. Maybe there is, but we all know that incandescent light bulbs are simply not good enough. They've been made a long time ago, and now technology has advanced. We have higher efficiency. We should take advantage of that. So it saves you on electricity bills, and it saves the environment by using less energy. Okay, and the last one, the most important, the base of the pyramid would be energy conservation. That means your behavior, your choices to consume less energy in the first place. Okay, you can conserve energy by changing how something is done. For example, if you want to go somewhere, maybe if the weather is good, ride a bike instead of driving a car. All right, or you can just walk. And also, if you just turn off the lights, if you're not using them, turn off the appliances if you're not using them, then you would go a long way. Just turn it off. And something that many people don't know, if you leave something plugged in, you still use electricity. This is called phantom power. All right, so if you unplug the equipment, then you're not using power anymore. But even if let's say your computer is turned off, but you have it plugged in, you are still consuming a little bit of electricity. Okay, so if you can unplug, that is the best way to save energy. Okay, something else that you can do, the 3 R's. I believe that you've learned this in many other classes, like geography. Reduce, reuse, and recycle, the 3 R's. So it takes energy to make stuff, all right? And if you want to make new things, you have to get the raw materials to do so. And usually that comes in the form of wood or a mineral or some kind of animal. Now, if you reduce the amount of things that you use, that's the best. If you don't need another shirt, don't buy another shirt. If you don't need a new phone, don't buy a new phone. Okay, so many people, newest iPhone comes out, oh, I'm switching. And they end up with like 5 phones in their drawers. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to judge those people. They can spend their money however they want. It's just that, that puts a burden on the environment. And if you can reuse something like a plastic bottle and you can find another purpose for that bottle, go ahead and do it. Reuse styrofoam cups. I wouldn't recommend using styrofoam cups in the first place. If you have to, then I would recommend you reuse it. I typically try to. Whenever I have a bottle, I typically leave it out if I could, and I use it again. It takes less energy to manufacture from recycled parts than to make new ones. So if you want to throw something away, like a bottle, don't throw it in the garbage. Recycle it so that it can be made into something else. Now, it's probably not going to be completely 100% recycled, but still better than nothing. Remember, the earth resource is finite. That means it's limited. It is going to run out, okay, if we're not careful. So the slower we do this, the more time we can spend using those resources. And some resources are renewable, like trees, but they're only renewable if you use them carefully and slowly. If you just cut down the entire forest in one go, that is not renewable. There's no more trees left to make more trees. So please keep that in mind. Buildings, if you live in a building, a lot of you don't, but if you do, turn off lights, use natural light. So during the day, I typically have the lights off because, why would you have it on when the sun is out? Wash clothes with cold water because it takes energy to heat it. Use the dishwasher when it's full. Don't wash like 2 plates and put it in the dishwasher. That's hugely wasteful. Showers instead of bath. Showers usually take shorter to finish. If you have a bath, you sit there for like an hour and you just enjoy yourself. Well, that's the waste of water. Less air conditioning, so don't use it. Right now, it is nice out. You don't really need air conditioning, but in the winter and the summer, yes. But try not to use it if you can. Unplug appliances. Adjust the thermostat. If you leave the building, turn off your thermostat because if you turn it on, you waste energy. Okay, so I was in China a couple of years ago to teach for like a year, and I was in the city of Wuhan, and that city has no air conditioning. Well, they have air conditioning, they don't have central heating. So in the wintertime, it is freezing cold. I could blast the air conditioning on 30 degrees, and the room still feels extremely cold. It is 0 degrees outside. It is 0 degrees in my apartment. So that was extremely difficult. But when I left to go to work, I turned off that air conditioning because I want to save money. I got to pay my own bills. But some of my colleagues didn't. Okay, they told me they left it on basically 24/7, even when they're not in the apartment. So when they go home, it is a little bit warmer than outside. But I'm too cheap for that. I didn't. So my electricity bill is quite cheap in the wintertime. It's like $10 Canadian. Theirs was like $100-something Canadian. So that's a huge difference. All right, so for transportation, this might not be relevant for you guys now because none of you have cars. At least I hope none of you have cars yet. If you eventually get a car, try to go electric if you can. If you can't afford that, go hybrid. If you can't afford that, we'll try to get a more fuel-efficient car. Fuel efficiency in cars is generally bad. Even the best cars use like 20% of the gas to move the car. The rest of it is wasted as heat. Okay, and that accounts for a lot of the greenhouse effect. So don't drive if you can help it. All right, does that make sense? Now, the best way to get around, like I said, is biking, busing, carpooling. If you drive a car, that car is burning fossil fuels for you only. If you hop on a bus, that bus is using fossil fuels, but it is transporting like hundreds of people at the same time. So that drastically reduces the greenhouse effect. All right, so that's less greenhouse gas per person. Same thing with carpooling, not as good as busing, but better than driving alone in a small vehicle. And then there's hybrid vehicles now. So how they work is they all use gas. Like hybrid vehicles are gas vehicles. You have to fill it up. But they're more efficient than conventional vehicles. How does it work? They also have a battery. So when you hit the brakes will charge that battery. Okay? So when you're not hitting the gas, or if you're going slowly, the car will use the battery instead of fuel. Okay, so it will recover some of the energy lost when you decelerate. So this greatly increases its fuel efficiency. So I have a hybrid myself. I don't have to fill up on gas as often as if I drove a conventional car. So when I switched to a hybrid, I noticed that I spent barely nothing on gas. It's like $50 a month compared to $200 before when I got the hybrid. So consider a hybrid if you can afford one in the future. And lastly, the most expensive electric. You don't have to get a Tesla. Tesla is the most expensive electric. There are other brands of electric cars now. So they don't use fossil fuels at all. They use purely battery. If you plug in your car, you use the electricity and you have to pay the electricity bill for that, but that is way cheaper than gasoline. Okay, and if your electric source is clean, that means you get it from a non-fossil fuel source, your car will have zero emissions. So you can drive around anywhere you like without emitting any carbon dioxide, either directly or indirectly. But keep in mind, they're only as environmentally friendly as the energy source. Now, if you hook it up to an electric source that uses a coal plant, then you're not really doing all that good with your Tesla or your other electric car, all right? Because it takes fossil fuels to generate that electricity to power your car. It's just now you have a middleman. So in Ontario, that's not a problem. The electricity from our homes comes from hydro, mostly. So we're using hydroelectricity. So that is quite clean. All right, so moving on. The last thing I want to talk about is something that you can personally change right now, today, is eating less meat and especially cattle. So if you look at this diagram, that's the amount of CO2 equivalent each of these animals release. Cows, number one, okay? Dairy from cows, like milk, kind of also high as well. And then you have pigs. I don't know who eats a buffalo, but here's a buffalo. Chickens. If you want to eat meat, eat more pigs and chickens and less beef. I've been trying to do that on a personal level as well. Smaller ruminants like sheep, they're way better in terms of environmental greenness, if that's even a word. So yeah, and just consume less meat. And if you look at the livestock statistic, different colors correspond to different animals. Orange being beef. Okay, North and South America eats a lot of beef, and so does Australia. That is not sustainable. All right, if you look at other continents like Africa, Northern Africa does not consume a lot of beef. Asia does not consume a lot of beef. I guess India is in Asia. India does not really eat beef at all. I've been to China. It's really rare to see beef in China. So yeah, it's quite expensive to eat beef in China. Usually Chinese eat a lot of pork. But in Canada and United States, beef is extremely popular. Steak is delicious. I get that. And I myself love steak, but I try to limit the amount of beef I eat. I haven't eaten a steak in like months. Now, eating beef has another cost because you got to feed the cow, you got to raise the cow, all the while consuming resources just so you can eat the cow. Okay, you wasted way more food just to produce little food, just because that little food is delicious. So you're wasting a lot of energy, you're wasting a lot of gas to grow those things, to feed the cow, to keep it alive, to drive it to the slaughterhouse, to slaughter and distribute, and then end up on your plate, and you finish it in like 2 minutes. So meat is costly for that reason. That's why meat is generally more expensive than vegetables. It is also more expensive environmentally than vegetables. So if everyone in the world becomes a vegetarian, we will have way less problems. All right. Being a vegetarian will cause the world to have simply more food, so we don't have to waste food to feed animals, and also we'll reduce our carbon emissions. Now, I'm not going to tell anyone to become a vegetarian for that reason, and I still respect people that eat meat because I myself do it too. That is a personal choice, so just keep in mind to be more conscious. Try to make that choice on your own. You can't guilt trip other people to do it. All right, so this is the end of this lesson and the end of the course. All right, so we're done with climate change. We talked about different aspects of climate. We talked about what causes climate, how climate changes over time, what climate is supposed to look like, the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, biomes, and all that. We talked about the problems with climate change, how we're going to get screwed if this happens, what the world has been doing and not doing, and this is it. Tomorrow, we have review. Okay, after tomorrow is Easter, and then after Easter is your test, and also your assignments are due. I said Friday, right? I posted it. I think it's Friday, but
it's midnight Friday, right?
Say what?
It's midnight Friday, right?
Yeah, if I post a date, it's usually midnight because I'm too lazy to enter a specific time.
Okay,
You should be finished quite soon, if not already. Don't procrastinate to the night before. All right, you can of course ask me questions, write me emails to clarify if you need any help. All right, so any questions before we end it?
Yeah, Mr. Joe, where are we supposed to send in
Submit?
homeworks? Like,
I'm sorry, submit the homeworks?
yeah.
Oh, yes. The homework, email them to me.
Okay.
Yeah, so the rest of the
When
homework,
do we email them though?
or email them.
Wait, can we just like?
But when though?
Can we just like stack them all in one document and then?
That would be great. That makes it easy.
That's what I did last time. So.
Yeah.
No, I just do the nice. Okay. All right.
Sure. Yeah. Any other questions?
Is there a due date for the email? When do we send for the homework? When do we send the home?
So I want them by Friday as well. No, I want them before the test. Yeah, the reason for that is if you do the homework before the test, you are reviewing for the test. And there's no point in doing the homework after the test. You see what I'm saying? So hand them in to me by Friday.
Oh, and is it okay if we can